Welcome. This is the first little video that I'm putting together to kind of explain what is happening in this part of the world. There's a few little things, and there's many reasons why you might have reached this video. You might be watching this video because you're on a myofascial journey. You might be watching this video because you're addressing mouth breathing while you're sleeping. You might be looking at this video because you're looking at teeth alignment, or you could be here for speech or feeding and the textual feeding within our sensory processing. Whichever way you're looking at it, kinesiology hits it from every single different angle, and there's normally a lot going on. It's very complicated. It's a complex system. And the way that the meridians work, they have a very layered approach. So what we need to be addressing, we kind of address it really simply, but what we're doing and what we're shifting is more of the complicated aspect. We have a lot happening in our jaw. Our jaw is a very important aspect of making long-term shifts within kinesiology. It's one of the reasons why the difference between kinesiology and other modalities that don't go as deep and understand what's happening with the jaw and the throat, then you have that same pattern come back and repeat. So essentially what we need to understand is that not only do we have the muscles of our jaw that we chew with, we have all our muscles of our tongue and the fibers that run in different directions that give us the ability to move our tongue in a different direction. And then we have all these muscles that then connect down. So we've got kind of a big pulley system. Putting it simply, it's not really that simple, but we have a big pulley system that comes through our hyoid bone. And often in clinic, I'll give that a wiggle and then balance it. And then it comes into our clavicle. So our head position, what's happening in our hyoid, which is very much related to our balance and our direction, to what's happening in the bottom of the tongue in terms of tongue tie, movement of tongue and position of tongue within the mouth. And then where that position of tongue within the mouth sits will depend on what's happening in the nasal cavity and the ear cavities in terms of drainage. So when you're thinking of adenoids and tonsils, we need to come to this first. Lots of people will have those things removed super fast, but not actually address the position of the tongue. And when the tongue position is shifted within the mouth, then the palate widens and the jaw will support that growth. So there's a lot happening because not only are we speaking and articulating through the movement of our mouth and our jaw, it then relates to how we're breathing, and which the breathing relates to our hydration and core dehydration, which then relates to our digestive enzymes. And not only that, the position of the head really relates to what's happening with that vagal nerve, the vagus nerve, or the vagal tone, and then going down into that digestion. So having an off position within this part of the body can have some quite dramatic follow-ons of, gut biome. It can have lots of feeling of anxiety around eating and sensations within the tummy. It can also be speech delayed or speech like issues with getting your speech out. Articulation is, I think, what I'm trying to talk to. But so you can kind of see that it's a multifaceted kind of aspect that we're looking at. So one of the first things that I'm going to be addressing is the meridians and the muscles. And this hyoid bone, having it move, so it can move sideways, it can move up and down when we swallow, and it can actually move forwards and back depending on where I am, and I want to make sure all those muscles are responding. One of the biggest responses within that muscle is your kidney meridian. However, when you separate all the muscles individually, you've got a little bit of liver, a little bit of gallbladder, a little bit of stomach, a little bit of small intestines, a little bit of all the meridians coming in. There's a lot happening here. We need to look at this as a layer approach. So we have our muscles on the inside and the position of our bone, which then changes our structural positioning and where we can relate to where we are in space. We then have on top of that our fascia, and then on top of that our skin. So there's a lot of aspect to work towards. If I am working with you with the muscles and with speech and all of the things that I've mentioned, then having some really good massage and skin pulling and tension is really vital. So what you want to try and do is get that cross. So I'm trying to look so my head's going that way and I'm just really sort of pulling into the skin the other way. And you just, with a little bit of oil, you're just really giving that a big massage up and down. You want to have nice big strength and pull within the skin. Some people will use the hair and sort of release the skin at the back of the neck with that pull of that hair and get into the back of the hair. If you're doing this on someone else, I would always recommend, if this is your child, to do it with yourself first and sort of feel what is that nice relaxed sensation and what is getting that nice tension. So we can shift all the muscles underneath and we can realign all the bones. But if we have a different message that's being held within our skin, then we're going to keep on coming back to that. So having that nice big massage and doing that at home is something really easy that you can do. I also like to give this a little bit of a wiggle when I'm working on this, and then I'm just with my thumbs just starting together and going sort of around like a compass. So I'm kind of giving my energetic muscles permission to realign with their north, south, east, west, and a little bit of the ones in between too. And you're sort of just going around. And that's always going to change. If this is the first time that you've sort of done it or thought about it, you might feel a little bit of shift within your hips and your pelvis because that really reflects it. And you can see here that I'm getting a little bit warm. If I was tonsils, adenoids, or feeling a little bit sick, or if this was my first journey and I've been out of position for a really long time, I'd really make sure that I get my fingers in up under that jaw and really giving those glands a little bit of a massage, right? And really getting in to that. And then you're just pulling it down. These little points, so here you've got my collarbone here, and then just underneath those points is my kidney meridian points. So that's what I kind of said, that kidney, like all your kidney energy comes from the ground and it comes up, and that's your flight and fight and your fear response, the feelings of feeling anxiety, a bit of creative insecurity, all of that kind of the unknown. And that comes up to this energy center here. And then it feeds into your meridians, but it kind of has a little bit of that energy pause here and kind of really gets stuck around that throat area. So when we're working with the mouth and the tongue and all of our speech, the fear of getting the words wrong, the fear of getting words out, the fear of making mistakes, the fear of public speaking, like all of those things, then coming in and giving those meridian points a really big rub and a big can be really good. I like to just shift then in your hips and feeling your pelvis. There's not anything that we do to our jaw or our neck that doesn't follow through to our hips and our pelvis and where our posture is sitting. So that's kind of like a big start with physically. Then we come to the way that we learn and getting our words out and speech. And there's a few little activities that you can do. The first little activity that I like to do, and I do this with kids, it's one of the first activities, is to blow and get that breath out of the mouth. If you are a little bit older, you could introduce whistling. I normally have a little pinwheel there that I get the kids to blow. And you can see that it comes from the bottom of the jaw. It's changing my angle and everything like that. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a blowing, and then I'm going to change where my eyes are. and I'm looking side to side. If I was a parent with a child and moving a pinwheel or a feather or something that they can physically see can blow, and just going from side to side. So we're going left and right. The kidney meridian is all about left and right essentially, and using both sides of your brain, both sides of the hemisphere. We could then come in and do your thumbs and come together. Super easy. The next thing is then the movement of the tongue. So the movement of the tongue that makes a big difference is sticking it out and then sucking it in fast. And this becomes a really fun game with kids. Ideally, you can do it as a little bit of face yoga if you're an adult and you're on your journey while you're cleaning teeth and you're just sort of looking. And what you want to do is you want to have your tongue go to the middle, tongue go to either side, because you want to be stretching through the back of the tongue, which then stretches through the back of underneath the jaw and coming down to the hyoid. And we want to have our eyes in different positions sideways as well. So it's a little bit of a brain gym journey. The next one is to have your head up and stretch. So you've got the stretcher there. And then your tongue is just going from side to side, and you're just working and stretching into the back of the corner of your mouth. But essentially you're lifting and stretching up. Now you might talk about doing it on the teeth. Depending on how far you can stick your tongue out, you might then be moving towards it being physically out of the mouth and really having a look at that. And then the next one to that would be to add in the eyes to go the opposite direction to the tongue. I don't know whether you can actually see my eyes in the video or not, but that's a really good one to work with. And you can, if that's something that you haven't done before, that's very tiring in the tongue. I'm trying to talk and do the little activities as well. So then that is the next layer on the tongue, and there's some super easy things that you can do at home. The next thing just to think about is like your mouth breathing and your pause before mouth breathing. The next activity that you want to be able to do is your clicking, which is fun to play with kids, to do the clicking game. And then from the clicking, you want to then be able to hold your tongue in the roof of your mouth, and you want to have a good stretch of that tongue up. So I would always talk, we do it in the car, is my preferred time to do. They're quiet in the car, and I have a little sticky note that reminds me every time we're on a 20-minute journey, picking up kids from school or sport, that we can actually come back and do all these activities. And then from there we have, like, you're there, and then you're closing your mouth, closing your lips. You have generally will have a swallow to keep the saliva moving, and your tongue should stay sucked up into the top of the mouth. Essentially, the back of your tongue, if it doesn't fit, the suction coming up will pause the palate to go out, and that, we call it mewing, but that over time will actually widen the top palate. So if we widen the top palate with the tongue exercise in the right position, and we have proper nutrition, the bottom jaw should match what's happening. And I personally have done it at my age and widened my tongue. I was a child of braces, but wasn't taught how to actually breathe myself, and have come on my own journey later in life. And now I can successfully say that my tongue is sitting in the roof of my mouth a lot better. I'm articulating my sounds a lot clearer, which is amazing, something that I've always struggled with. And then with that, I don't feel like I've seen a big jaw aspect, but there's lots of males that say that they see more of the jaw. And as far as I'm aware, there are people that are up to the age of 60 that are still able to have that malleableness of our jaw. It's not as set in stone as we have been led to believe, which is amazing. On top of that, Myo Munchies help. I prefer, well, I haven't purchased it myself, but I like the look of the straw that gets you to press your tongue up into the roof of your mouth to then drink the water. So you're getting that strength of your tongue coming up as well when you're looking at the complexity of your tongue and the way that the muscles work. And we know with anything in life to do with muscles, the more we strengthen it and practice it and articulate it, the more neural pathways that will develop and support that, which is amazing. So that's sort of the start. When you've come that far, then the next thing I would do is the mouth taping at night. I use a little bit of kinesiology tape. I've had all my muscles balanced within my jaw. I've released the emotional tightness of it and the baggage essentially, and the fight and fight and all the fear responses of saying the wrong things or being in the wrong time, being in the wrong position, not smiling, holding all of those kind of things in before I've taped my mouth. And then now essentially I tape my mouth, not because I can't do it, but because I'm over 40. So I've had over 40 years of building a habit of my muscles relaxing and being a particular way when I sleep. And so that tape is just helping me to build up the muscle memory and reconfirm the pathways within the nighttime. I have got to a point, so myself, talking a little bit more personally, it took me a month to really become comfortable with the mouth taping. Once I've passed that month's mark, I find that it's really addictive. And if I don't tape my mouth, then after that month mark, I noticed it, I was really addicted because it made me wake up so much better and more alert. And I could physically feel my nervous system relax with that. And now I will tape it probably 2 nights and then have a week off, and then 2 nights and have a week off, and 2 nights and have a week off, kind of just playing it as we go. I still know that I will probably consciously be aware of breathing through my mouth or through my nose and having tape probably for another year, I would say. It's not such an instant fix, because I have to develop a new habit essentially with muscle memory. So you're just balancing the new pathways compared to the 40 years of the old pathways. A few things that you notice when you are taping your mouth is you should notice dehydration changing. What's happening in the mouth really relates to our lung meridian and our breath and what we're detoxing through the breath. And when it comes to Chinese medicine and your metal element and your detox pathways, you're looking at your large intestines and your lungs being the way that you get rid of the toxins from your body essentially, which is why we often talk about tongue scraping when you're doing a detox program or anything like that to help rid those toxins that are coming up through your mouth. But because those pathways will be more supported, then you should actually notice that your skin change and the hydration through your skin change. So that's really looking at your barriers and your boundaries will have a shift as well. So as you can see, that's 20 minutes of me talking about speech, right? So lots of people come to see me in the clinic and they'll be seeing a speech therapist. Fantastic. We clear everything. I don't actually teach you how to articulate and do all the speech aspects. So coming and having some of that speech as a backup is perfect and works hand in hand. Often you'll find though, you might need it, you might not need it. You might find that if it's your child and once they're freed up, then they pick up your language better and your articulation. But if you're concerned about your own language and articulation, then definitely invest in the speech aspect. If you're working myofascially, and you have young children, then what they're digesting in their environment for language has a really big impact. Things like long and short vowels and watching cartoons with mouth movements and big cartoons that don't articulate can actually have an impact on what they're hearing and what they see in that facial expressions. Kids learn a lot through osmosis. As the more you come to kinesiology, the more that you find that out. So making sure what they're absorbing within their external environment is congruent with your language skills is really important. Things like American television shows with short vowels rather than long vowels can be a little bit confusing. Opt for shows that are in like an Australian show or an English show or a New Zealand show, if like I'm here in Australia, so that kind of makes sense there. If you're in America, then fantastic, go for an American show. And the movement of the mouth and all those kind of things. I think I've touched on everything. So on top of that, so what I have tried to package together is the understanding of it, the massage, the movement, a few little points to do, and then a few little exercises to do with Brain Gym to actually support you at home, but to then understand the importance of the journey. The more you can support that at home, the more shifts that we can have within the clinic. As always, finishing on, I hope this helps.